please subscribe and don't forget to press the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload a new video.
Good morning. Welcome to Bazaar Morning Call. I'm Lata, with me Anuj and Sonia, and those are the cues that we are going to discuss over and over again for a better part of the day. So let me start with something different. There's no denying that we are going to move on domestic cues today, not global cues, but just a couple of other cues before we come to the political. Extraordinary numbers from Hindustan Unilever, and what it was telling us is, or reiterating is, that rural India is growing and is in fine fettle. That's extremely positive for not just Hindustan Unilever, but for a whole host of agri stocks. The second message we got yesterday was that along with growth comes inflation. More demand would mean more inflation, and this is not food inflation, but it's broad-based core inflation. That's something no central bank can ignore, and the bond yields were already higher because the number had leaked. So 7.82 is something the stock markets have to take cognizance of. But all these will pale into insignificance if the government at the centre got an endorsement of its work and got the state of Karnataka as well. So I really want to hear from Anuj and from our technical experts what happens. Do we vote? Will it be a one-day move, and then again we start worrying about crude at 78 and inflation and growth? That's really my question.
Hi, Lata. Morning. Hi, Anuj. Morning. I'm glad you started by cutting through the clutter and talking about the domestic cues, because, you know, it gets a bit overwhelming, this set and election day. Generally, there's a lot of adrenaline. But since you started talking about positives, let me add a couple to that. We had some really good numbers from a lot of the other players in the broader markets, you know, whether it was names like KEC, Godrej Agrovet, etc. I'll talk about that later. Britannia could be in focus today as well. It comes out with its numbers. And there was quite a bit of buying, right? Of course, there was that emphasis deal, but FI has bought about 700 crores, DI has bought 700 crores. And the one thing that the street may not react to today is Piyush Goyal getting...
UFM.
Yes, Piyush Goyal getting the interim charge of the finance ministry. So that as well is something to talk about. But Anuj, morning, purely for today, how does one trade? I mean, irrespective of which way things go, will this market scale above 11,000? That's a question for a later day. But for today, do you expect a lot of volatility?
Morning, Sonia. First of all, I think today is a day to trade extremes. A 200-point dip on Nifty, if it's a Congress government, I think that will be a buying opportunity. A 100-point rally on Nifty, if it's a straight BJP government, will be a selling opportunity.
Really?
It will be. Today, there's a good chance because a lot of this is in the price now. It's, the market's now... Why is the market, where it is? Of course, global cues have been positive, but in general, you're so close to all-time highs. I think apart from all of this, really, I would, tell people to heed to a warning that the market's been giving us for last many days now. This year, the Nifty is up 2.6%. The mid-cap index is down 9%, and Junior is down 6%. When a mid-cap index is down 9%, portfolios hurt. And that's what's happening right now. A lot of portfolios are hurting. The market breadth is, very poor for last 3 or 4 days. Even on the best of the days, on Friday when we had the big rally, the market breadth was in favor of declines. 67 stocks made new high yesterday. 265 stocks made new 52-week low in trade yesterday, and the market breadth is consistently in favor of declines. The risk reward is not in favor of you to take fresh positional long, even if the BJP wins. In fact, if the BJP wins today, today's high could well be a bit of a near-term top for the market because, the market's had a rally. We are not at 99.50. We are at 10,800.
So if it's not elections that is going to drive this market, what is it? Is it the worry about higher crude prices? Because everybody seems to be ignoring that now.
Yeah, and the way the market... Look, for a market to go to new high with this kind of advanced decline is unhealthy. Simple as that. It's better for the market to be at 10,500 with 2:1 or 3:1 advanced decline than be at 10,800 with 1:3, 1:4 advanced decline. So this market is factoring in something for the broader market. And, last year was a big one. So this year, obviously, there's always going to be some problem. But it all boils down to risk reward. At closer to 11,000, once again, my sense is that, you need to now wait for a 200, 300-point dip to buy. This overall texture is still buy on dips for the large caps. But in the mid caps, I think the markets has given enough warning signs, and you have to sort of heed to that. I think this could be the first sign from market that perhaps a reversal could be in the offing. And sometimes reversals happen after the good news. So the good news today could be actually the BJP wins. If the BJP does not win and there's a 200-point decline, which will happen, that I think would be the best buying opportunity.
No, okay, I can't reiterate the way you speak about mid-caps more graphically. Yesterday, we were making the same calculations on markets today. If you look at the year-on-year mid-cap performance, it is up 5%. Do you remember what it was at the end of 2017? 40%. Mid-cap index was the best performing index. But now, May to May, if you look at it, it's just up 5%. So much has been eaten up in terms of mid-cap performance. Definitely, that will hurt. But for me, the point is the Hindustan Unilever numbers and the core inflation numbers are speaking of a groundswell of growth. Yes. And that is not ignorable. Yes. It's true that at the moment, probably for liquidity reasons and probably because the market has already risen, the markets are a different animal. But economy-wise, I think yesterday was good news. Whether it came from Hindustan Unilever or whether it came from inflation. It was telling us that there is a growth story which is alive and kicking. And to it, if you add political stability, then there is a positivity for the economy. It may be another matter that the market may have, may choose to react to it on another day and not, immediately may find a top. But these are positive news for the economy, for the political economy.
Absolutely. Even the commentary from HUL was quite positive. And, look beneath the surface. I mean, KEC reported almost a 40% growth in its order book. You had names like Dr. Lal PathLabs, Bombay Dyeing, all reporting good numbers as well. So I think the report card so far has been quite good, and that will also buoy the markets. But let's tell you how to approach the trading day. Let's take a look at what our wise experts have to say as we head into trade this crucial morning. Vinay Kumar of Deutsche Bank says India's current cyclical positioning is somewhat similar to the 2003-2004 period, with a key contrast that the rate cycle is not as supportive. Also, he adds the PSU banks may take somewhat longer to turn growth supportive. In this macro backdrop, he expects growth stocks to continue outperforming in the coming quarters. He says preferred stocks in their model portfolio are Maruti, Titan, Hero MotoCorp, Jubilant Foodworks, ITC, Dabur and HUL.
Okay. Money market cues today, and that would be important. Bhaskar Prada of HDFC Bank says the dollar has been consolidating as fears of a trade war escalation recede. However, he says there is no respite for the USD INR pair as crude prices, as high crude prices, high US yields and local factors continue to impact. Today, he adds, the market will look forward to cues from Karnataka elections, given the heady mix. He says we can look forward to a volatile session for the USD INR today's range between 67.40 and 67.75.
And he also talks about the bond market, says the 10-year benchmark yield could see a volatile day. The range is seen between 7.8 to 7.90%.
Okay. Okay, I think we're getting some leads. I'm just watching CNN News 18. Just keep in mind, I think they could be postal ballots, and these may not matter too much for now. The first 8 seats on the screen, CNN News 18, Congress 1, BJP 5, JDS 2. But let's hold ourselves because these things can change. For now, it's a good start if you are a bull for you. We have our first guest joining us on the show now. Ajay Srivastav is with us from Dimension Corporate Finance. Ajay, good morning. Good to have you on the show.
Thank you. Good morning.
So, thoughts on markets from here, Ajay? You reckon a BJP win is priced in, or if we have a BJP win, can that vault the market towards new highs?
I think it will, and I think, but when we say market to the new highs, depends upon where your portfolio is positioned, because this is irrespective of what the verdict is. The flight to safety will continue. It's already started in the last month and a half or two. It will accelerate more because very clearly it doesn't matter who wins. Economic success was not the pillar on which any party fought this elections. In fact, economic policy or economic successes were not even mentioned. So nobody is saying that we have a great macro story building up in the country, etc. And the market is smart enough to respond to it by saying, let's move to high quality at this point of time, rather than sitting in this year with anything low quality or large leverage companies. So irrespective of who wins, flight to quality will start, and which will keep the Nifty at least pretty well buoyed up, irrespective of what happens to the broader market.
Okay. Ajay, what is the sense you're getting in case there is a Congress win? Anuj was speaking about a possible 200-point dip, which should be used as a buying opportunity. How would you interpret if that was the scenario?
You know, I have a different view. I think what we've spoken to all the people investing in the market and this thing, I don't think anybody is going to take money out of the market just because the ruling party does not win. And as I said, the reason being that people are getting more and more agnostic towards the fact that who is ruling in the center, because that is not the political agenda. The economic agenda is people have to respond to a higher oil, higher crude prices, higher interest rates, yields being higher. And, you know, let's be honest, the companies with foreign currency loans will have to record, Lata, huge MTM losses in the coming quarters now, as the rupee remains where it is today. So irrespective of which, I don't think that there'll be a major selling. Even if it is selling, it will be bought into, because at this point of time, people are not really responding to saying who wins Karnataka dictates my investment choices. I think investment choices made, so listen, take us to quality at this point of time. Let's not pitter around with the turnaround stories or large stories of leverage. So I don't think it's going to make a material difference in the end of 24 hours or 48 hours. Market will continue to grow at the upper end of the cycle, and the lower end will keep going down.
Okay, so Ajay, good morning. You said irrespective of
Good
which way
morning,
the elections go, there will be a flight to safety. And in that, we've seen quality names like HUL deliver stellar numbers this quarter. How would you approach this entire space now? Because FMCG as a pocket has done very well.
See, okay, now seemingly it's an exhaustive story because it's been covered time and again that, listen, you need to buy consumer stocks. And these results, obviously, HUL was good. But HUL little surprised us more on the side of the, if you look at the sales, it wasn't so high compared to what we thought is going to be the profitability. So obviously lower GST has given a major benefit to them. But broadly speaking, apart from Titan, if you look at it, Nestle, this guy, Britannia comes on today, and other stocks have all done reasonably well. So I think your investment has to continue to this pocket. They are expensive stocks, let's be no doubt about it. These are all running at 40 plus PE, so it's not that there will be a big, you got to be patient with these stocks. If you want 20% return, it's going to take you 8 to 10 months to hold on to these stocks. But where do you go? If you take, Sonia, the block of shares in Indian market, you take the 3-4 banks, you take these consumer companies, and then what? There's nothing else to buy. And which is why these shares are going to become much more frothier, because the investment choices are now narrowing down so fast that if you even look at the results, some people say it's good, some people say it's bad, but our analysis shows that 70% of the results have been mediocre or below expectation because the base quarter was very, very low post-demonetization. And what has come out on at least the top line has not been satisfactory at all. Bottom lines have been much better actually compared to top lines. And bottom lines are going to dissipate in this quarter with the crude prices, interest rates, and foreign exchange losses put together. So I think the scenario is building up that you will have a universe of 50 to 100 stocks to work with, and most portfolios will try to do that. And the worst part was that the SEBI adjustment came just at the wrong time. When there was no demand for mid-cap in the market, the MFs had to reallocate portfolios. And I think that was the final straw on the camel's back, which broke the mid-cap, was this adjustment in the MF portfolios.
Ajay, it's interesting you made this point, and since we're discussing consumption, I just wanted your thoughts on whether what we heard from Tata Global and the stock reaction yesterday was an aberration or a bit of a warning that since, you know, some of these things are priced to perfection, this could lead to, you know, fall in some of the other stocks as well going forward.
You know, no, Anuj, I don't think that's what, see, Tata Global, and I think that's the beauty of the thing. You know, I'm sorry to use the word, but it's a colloquial word. A dog is a dog in the market. It has never performed in the last 5 years. So expect him to start running new tricks in a scenario is not going to happen. But if you look at a Nestle, if you look at a HUL, if you look at a Britannia, these people have been performing year on year. They come with a trajectory and a pedigree. Tata Global was the sole stock which did not come with a pedigree. The only one which disappointed everybody in the market was Titan. I think it was the first man standing on the consumer line, and it fell in the first side. But the good part is that you are now opening up new choices. Pharma is opening up. MNC Pharma opens up now because if Trump puts through his threat that, listen, you cannot put price control on the drugs coming from abroad, these MNC Pharma companies are going to reap a mindful, and they're not held by many people. Liquidity is very poor. Whoever buys these pharma stocks, I think, will make a killing in the next 12 to 18 months.
Okay. Well, Ajay, I can see that you're not very impressed by the results, but the macro economy is indicating some positives. You can't miss the rural growth story, both in the Hindustan Unilever numbers and the unimpeachable confidence of the management. You notice that in Dabur as well. Yesterday, the inflation numbers indicated that core inflation is rising. That can happen only if there is demand. There is a groundswell of demand, rural demand especially. It's not convincing you that even if some of the listed stocks have not taken advantage, there's growth ahead.
Let's bifurcate. It is not growth. What is also happening is that the SSI competition which they were facing from the unorganized sector, that's gone down dramatically in the market. So what Unilever is gaining is not only because of the macro growth stories turned around, is also because number of players which were in the field at the lower end of the cycle, which were supplying to regional markets, rural markets, those have disappeared consequent to demonetization and GST put together. So as we had already said, that this story has moved to the large caps, not because of the major growth story, but because of the fact that they are able to price them better. If you look at HUL, pure HUL, you see the profitability is much, much better compared to the sales growth, which tells you the story that they are able to get a price increase done more than the volume increases.
So, Ajay, before we wrap up, just to summarize your view so far, is it fair to say that you believe that irrespective of which way the elections go, it'll be hard for the Nifty to conquer the 11,000 mark because of the issues you mentioned, crude as well as earnings?
No, I think Nifty will cross 11,000 mark. My view is it will cross 11,000 mark purely because there will be substantial buying in the Nifty stock as more and more people migrate out of the other than Nifty stocks. So before the final elections come through, you will find Nifty crossing 11,100 all-time high because there will be major buying in Nifty stocks compared to the rest of the market. That pure liquidity demand for that stock and the movement of money is going to take this market higher at the Nifty. Now, what happens to individual portfolios, leave aside, Nifty will cross.
Okay. Flight to quality, that's the message from Ajay Srivastava. Pleasure having you with us this morning. And if there are dramatic moves, Ajay, we will take the benefit of your advice yet again later on in the morning. Allow us to do that.
You have a good day.
222 seats will be counted in Karnataka. The counting has begun, we understand. We're getting some early leads as well. Let's see. So far, it looks like it's going to be neck and neck, but it's too early to tell. Our research team is standing by with CNBC TV18's list of top 10 stocks for the trading day. So let's go straight to them. Anuj, what are you looking at today?
So two stocks, one on the red side, one on the green side, I think could be that kind of a day. Ashok Leyland, it's sliced through its 20-day moving average with strong delivery volumes. Anecdotally, it corrects about 15 to 20% after, and then makes a new high. So it could be interesting. I would want to see at what price it bottoms out. And Edelweiss, yesterday NBFCs were weak, but Edelweiss actually ended at high point and within 2% of lifetime high. One thing which goes in favor of Edelweiss is it's only in cash, so there's no shorting. It's not in F&O. So there was some delivery buying yesterday. In fact, for last 3 or 4 days in Edelweiss.
Okay, but clearly the star of the morning is going to be Hindustan Unilever. Mangalam, I heard you yesterday. I heard you on PB, but I want to hear you again.
Well, Lata, the company's tagline, Surf Excel, earlier went with the tagline Do Dala, and that's what I'm going to use for HUL this time. Spotless results, because if you take a look at the volumes, 11% higher than the most optimistic estimates on the street. Total income growth of 10.8%. Remember, comparable domestic revenue growth has been 16%. And the revenue growth hasn't come at the cost of margins. The margins have actually expanded. And if it wasn't the volume beat, the key highlight of these results would have been strong EBITDA margins. Net profit has come in higher, and the margins have come in higher despite higher ad expenses. If you take a look at the management commentary, that has been fairly positive as well. They've spoken about rural growth. They said trade channels have returned to normalcy. And for the future, what I like the most is they said the innovative as well as the naturals portfolio is actually growing 2.5 times the average portfolio, so which sets a path for future growth as well. Brokerages have been fairly positive. Remember, the stock is trading at historic valuations, but despite that, the brokerages have gone ahead and increased the target price. Not about today, but in the future, it looks like the stock is likely to outperform.
Okay, Mangalam, thanks a lot for that. In fact, what the street has also really liked is that there's no low base effect and no channel filling. It's pure demand-led volume growth that we've seen this time around. Positive commentary coming in from the management as well. Let's listen in.
We had bought Indulekha on a consideration which was a fixed component to it, and there was a payout coming from the actual sales delivered. Given that the brand has been performing very well for us, and we have stepped up our estimates, the growth rates, which will be much higher than what we had originally forecasted. There is a need for us, as per the accounting standards, to really recognize the liability which arises from this higher growth. I think this is a clear demonstration that the brand is in a very good space and is growing much faster than our original plans. When you look at what are the elements that we have dialed up, I think clearly which are some of the segments of the future, and you can see some examples. Now, these have been growing at 2x the HUL average, albeit again from a smaller base. When you look at it from innovations and naturals, this portfolio has been growing at 2.5 times HUL average. And I think that's really where we are building the segments of future, both from the portfolio on top and naturals, which is there in the example.
Okay, that's lever. Of course, we'll keep an eye on that. But yesterday, Nimesh alerted us to some MSCI changes, and now we have the official data as well, Nimesh?
Yes, Anuj. So, the key headlines. One, the China A shares got added to the MSCI, which would mean that the India weightage will go down by almost 20 bips. We spoke about that yesterday as well. In terms of the India changes in the large index, Avenue Supermart has got added, Interglobe Aviation has got added. So those two were big surprises. Pidilite and Power Grid we spoke about yesterday as well. There was a high possibility of those getting added. So that's been added as well. In terms of deletions, ACC, IDFC Bank, Tata Motor DVR and Vakrangi are the stocks which have got deleted from the MSCI India index. There are a whole host of changes to the MSCI small cap index as well. Some 27 stocks got added to the India index, whereas 17 got deleted. Within the additions, I guess the big surprises would be the two, graphite, which HEG and graphite. Those have got added. First Source has got added in the small cap small cap index. So is Capital First. So is IDFC Bank shifted to the small cap, and a couple of other PSU banks as well. In terms of deletions, I guess watch out for Balrampur Chini. That stock will get hammered again today. Marksans was down good 12%. I guess today that's the reason why, because that's got deleted from the MSCI small cap, and so the stocks like HDIL. Biocon has got deleted, Advanced Enzyme has got deleted. So 17 odd stocks got deleted, but I think the stocks to watch would be Avenue Supermart from the large cap in terms of addition, as well as Interglobe, and in terms of deletion, watch out for Tata Motor DVR and Vakrangi.
Okay, thanks a lot for that, Nimesh. But core inflation was higher than expected, so that could have an impact on NBFCs. Lata?
Exactly. Actually, the market already reacted yesterday from the bond side, went to 7.8 to the yield. And that happened after stock markets closed. So I would expect that some of the NBFC stocks and many of the PSU bank stocks, for instance, SBI, they have large bond portfolios. So a crash in bond prices is going to have a sentimental negative. Well, you can pick any. You can maybe say Indiabulls Housing, DHFL, SBI, PNB, BOB. All these are bound to be affected one way or the other.
Well, yes, a lot of these stocks were down yesterday, especially towards the end. But this Fortis saga goes on and on. Ekta.
Yes, Anuj. Well, the latest is that the Manipal TPG Group have revised their offer higher and submitted a fresh bid, which stands at 180 rupees per share. But remember that now they will probably, it'll be interesting to see what the board does with regards to this, since all of the offers have been closed and they've chosen Munjal Berman. So overall, expect the stock to probably be in the green, because the fight is not over and the valuations keep rising.
Okay, yeah, more and more people want it at higher and higher price. I guess that'll be a sentimental positive, but for how long? Well, Sonal, you're going to tell us about the Godrej Agrovet numbers?
Well, decent set of numbers, Lata. You know, the revenue went up by 16%, and that was majorly led by higher sales in the animal feed and crop protection business. The profits went down by around 44%. That was majorly because last quarter, they had an exceptional income of around 20 crores. Now, we'll look out for the volume growth. So, in animal feed business, they have reported a volume growth of around 19%. However, in the oil palm business, the volumes have gone down by around 7.5%. So, the street's reaction to that will be something I'll watch out for, but overall decent set of numbers.
Okay, good set of numbers coming in from Godrej Agrovet. In fact, it's been a good day for earnings so far. Dr. Lal, Pathlabs also came out with good numbers post-markets yesterday, Ekta?
Yes, absolutely. There was a margin improvement, there was a revenue growth as well as a profit which was higher than estimates, simply led by a volume growth of around 20% for this quarter. And the company expects the momentum to continue, so you can expect some green on that stock.
Okay, and Sonal, what about some other results?
I'll continue with the good news. All the results that I have should open up in green. I'll start with Bombay Dyeing. Revenue growth of 44%. That was majorly led by the real estate and the textile business. They reported a profit this time around at 11 crores versus a loss last year. This was despite the fact that they had a loss, exceptional loss of 131 crores. KEC, they met the FY18 revenue guidance. Revenue came in at 3,600 crores versus a poll of 3,300 crores. Even the profits were higher than our poll at around 200 crores. Expect that stock to be in green as well. NR Agrawal and JK JK Paper. These are two paper manufacturing companies with good set of numbers. In NR Agrawal, margins expanded by 170 basis points, and they reported a profit this time at 64 crores versus a loss last year. JK Paper also good set of numbers. Margins went up by 80 basis points, and profits were up 30% because of lower finance costs. Balaji Mines, another strong set of numbers. The EBITDA went up by 23%, and also the profits, they went up by 85% because of lower costs. Expect that stock to be in green as well.
Okay, thanks a lot for that. So it's a long list of stocks to look at today. Here's a quick recap, though, of our top 10 stocks to watch. Expected to gain today: Edelweiss, Avenue Supermarts, Interglobe Aviation. No, in fact, this is not the list. We will talk about the list later. It's, of course, HUL, names like that, that will be rising in trade today. But we have another guest that joins us as well. Godrej Agrovet, Dr. Lal Pathlabs also are a couple of stocks to watch. Anuj?
Oh yes, we have our next guest joining us now. Arvind Sanga now joins us, Managing Partner of Geosphere Capital Management. Arvind, good morning from Mumbai, and of course, good evening to you in New York. You know, we of course in media make you know, the state elections like big affairs, but are they really big for the market? Do you think the market can change its course depending on the outcome of this election?
Well, I mean, I think unless it's a decisive one way or the other, if you get, you know, both parties with 90 plus or minus seats, and you have a third party, you know, how does it matter whether Congress gets 100 or BJP gets 100 and the other gets 90, and then, you know, the JDS was the kingmaker? I mean, it just seems like much ado about nothing. I think the problems or the challenges for India are beyond whether or not BJP is winning a decisive victory or not in the Karnataka election, because I don't think it's a particularly meaningful indicator, because the Indian voter is smart enough that he or she does not vote for national elections the same way that they vote for state elections. So in that sense, I think people are overplaying this election as having meaningful effect. I mean, oil is almost $80. Rupee is facing challenges. We saw magically the oil marketing companies, after not increasing prices for almost 3 weeks, raise fuel prices yesterday. So, you know, you have all of the elements of some of the things that, frankly, we as investors worry about in terms of macro factors that are going to be providing some headwind at the same time as, I guess, the earnings recovery or the overall recovery for the Indian economy seems to be gathering pace. But my concern is, you know, government actions that can, you know, lead up to an election in the next 1 year, you know, and was the oil marketing companies biting the bullet on the so-called decontrolled fuel prices, the first indicator of things to come. And there are other things that we worry about that make us more concerned about the outlook for Indian markets than you know, overemphasizing what happens in the Karnataka Assembly results.
Permit me just one more question, Arvind, on the Karnataka polls. Won't a decisive win for the BJP seen as an endorsement and a slightly higher chance of this government coming back with a majority? And alternatively, if it was a decisive win, by decisive I mean if the Congress formed the government, would not the message be that the opposition has got the edge and may be able to galvanize a better support in the 19 polls? So would you not say that one needs to take this result, at least immediately in the short run, seriously?
Well, if there is a decisive result one way or the other, maybe that can be projected to 2019 election prognostication. But if you get one party slightly ahead, the other party slightly behind, anti-incumbency works against Congress, or Congress is able to, you know, despite anti-incumbency, but BJP in alliance with JDS, you know, forms a government. Those are all indecisive outcomes, which really are more state-level electioneering issues. Decisive victories would probably give a little bit more confidence than a more muddled outcome where one party or the other in a coalition forms a government.
Arvind, hi, good morning. We also had a big cabinet rejig yesterday, and now Piyush Goyal will be taking the interim charge of the finance ministry. How do you look at that from a market standpoint? Of course, he has a whole host of issues to deal with, you know, inflation, crude, the rupee, etc. But in general, do you think it's a positive for the markets?
Well, I think that to the extent that Mr. Jaitley was ailing and the decision-making was, being somewhat rudderless in terms of the bureaucrats making decisions without clear oversight, it certainly should be a positive. I'll tell you an issue that is very near and dear to us, which we're shocked that, SEBI has come out with a circular a month ago and the finance ministry either forced it or blessed it or whatever, that hopefully Mr. Piyush Goyal, who is, has a much clearer understanding of issues, in my opinion, and with his background, in as a chartered accountant and investment banker, will hopefully understand there's a rule that they've come out with, which basically says if you're an Indian origin portfolio manager investing from overseas, you have to basically wind up your business by October 10th, because we assume all you Indian portfolio managers are crooks and you round trip money for Indian corrupt businessmen, and therefore you to be treated as second-class citizens compared to non-Indian origin portfolio managers from overseas, which is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard in any country where it's disadvantaging people of its ethnic origin versus people of other ethnic origins, which is, something that is completely flabbergasting to me.
Oh, okay. Yeah, this is shocking if this is the way the rules have been framed. Arvind, you were a little worried about the Indian macros, especially with crude going towards $80. But the Hindustan Unilever results and the other consumer companies are indicating a robust rural demand. In fact, in Hindustan Unilever's case, the management pointed out even their higher packages, normally, say, elitist consumption items, have also done exceptionally well, indicating growth on many, segments. Doesn't that impress you that there is a groundswell of growth?
Absolutely. I think the only challenge is, remember, these growth numbers are coming in the March quarter. What will higher fuel prices, which have really shot up in the last month and a half, right? April, May has been the big move in oil prices. What will this movement in oil prices do as those are passed on to consumers? Will there be, some negative effect of that? I think the economy, frankly, after, several bumps along the way, whether it was demonetization or it was the GST implementation, was subdued for a long time, and therefore there are, suppressed demand factors that should be coming to the fore. But I don't want to underplay the effect of $80 oil and rupee steadily, creeping towards the high 60s and towards 70. Those are going to be moderate headwinds, and frankly, if the Indian government has to partly absorb the higher fuel prices by cutting excise duties, then it'll be important to see government discipline so that they don't crowd out the private sector, as things come back. So I've been very optimistic about the private sector, but whether it is self-goals by the Indian government, which forces Indian origin portfolio managers to have to liquidate portfolios and take money out, or it is other factors which the government does to hurt the market. Those are negatives that we have not counted on. And those are things worth watching, because, if the government makes, decisions leading up to the election, which are populist but ultimately self-damaging, then that could create outflows of capital and create further pressure on the rupee. And I think those are things that we had not assumed were things we had to worry about. So we are very glad that earnings are recovering, but we'd like to see the government do stuff that shows understanding that the global macro environment is not as favorable with Fed interest rates rising and everything that's happening. And the last thing the government wants to do is turn money away or shun money coming from investors.
Okay, Arvind, quite a bit of pain in your voice. We hope issues are sorted here. Thanks a lot for joining us. Always good talking to you. But before we take a break, a couple of important updates from Karnataka. It's a cliffhanger. It's 32 to the Congress, 31 to the BJP. Somewhere along the line where the couple of exit polls had predicted